You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hey, it's Sam Ben-Ruby, and this is The Wine List. The Wine List is a new fast-paced podcast featuring the best-in-class wine guests. Each week, I will ask our guests 5 questions about their current wine and food preferences, the same 5 questions I've asked everyone from day one on the Grape Nation. Get ready for the most diverse and interesting recommendations to try now, and we'll also find out about what's going on in our guests' world. This week, we talked to David Pearson. David has spent decades in wine, specifically the luxury wine market, including stints as CEO of Opus One Winery, worked with Bill Harlan at Meadowood Estate, and is now the executive chairman for Moet Hennessy's Joseph Phelps Vineyards in California. We're talking to David in New York City at the Moet Hennessy headquarters downtown. David, welcome to The Wine List.
Thank you, Sam. Happy to be here.
You are our 3rd guest of the new podcast.
Oh, very good.
So fresh and young. Just quickly, why are you in New York?
I've come in to be at the Wine Spectator Wine Experience, which is an annual event. Every great winemaker is here. It's a great opportunity to share our wines and see a lot of friends from around the world and do some good networking and sharing our wines.
It's an impressive event. All right, David, as I mentioned to you off air, we're going to get right into it. We're going to start off with the wine list. I'm going to ask you the original 5 questions, and I've added some twists, personalized to you. So the first question we ask everybody is, what are you drinking now? What's in your fridge? What's on your shelves at home? Are you stuck drinking a lot of wine for work? Do you get out? So what are you drinking now?
It's a great question. I'm drinking a little bit of everything. I have to admit.
There's also seasonality change, not so much in Napa, but that dictates what people drink.
It can, right?
Yeah.
It's getting cooler. Autumn is coming, and when winter is, you tend to go for a little bit heavier red wines. I have to, this is going to sound self-promotional, but it is the fact. Within my new role, it's been a little bit more than 2 years now, I'm still enjoying drinking a lot of our own wines. An example is a wine that you may not have heard of. We make a white table wine. In fact, 23 was the first vintage we did this, where we made 24 was the first year we did this. We made a Shoy Rebe. Do you know the grape Shoy Rebe?
SCHEUREBE. And that's a German
It's
sweet?
A German hybrid grape created by a gentleman named Shoy back in the 1920s, a cross of Riesling and Buchentraub. And
does Phelps make a Shoy Rebe dessert wine?
Well, we have made a dessert wine for a number of years called Delice, which is a very fine, delicious dessert wine. And in 24, we decided for the first time to make a white table wine out of it. Our winemaker...
So describe to me, if you had to look at the characteristics of the wine for people to relate.
Well, it's a white, crisp, fruity wine, but it's got a nice density to the mid-palate, a little bit like Marsanne and Roussanne has some nice weight to the mid-palate, but not quite as dense as that. It's not overly exotic fruit. It's just a lovely, drinkable white wine that can go with seafood and
does it have is it aromatic?
It's nicely aromatic with, I would say, white floral characteristics, some good...
it sounds like Viognier to me.
It's got a little bit of Viognier quality to it. That may be the close. Right, anyway, so drinking some Shoy Rebe, which is a fun non-one.
So I don't begrudge you for drinking Phelps wines because haven't been there that long.
Still learning.
That's okay. Let's get out of that for a second. What the old day preferences? I mean, are you a Burgundy guy or?
I tell you what, I'm still a Rhone fellow.
North or south or both?
Well,
Chateauneuf.
So no, north. Cornas, Côte-Rôtie, Saint-Joseph. I love Alain Graillot's wines. who passed
Yeah.
a year and a half
I think
ago.
his son is there.
I think so too. His white wine was my go-to white wine.
The whites in the Northern Rhone are like, they're
love
not
those
sleepers, but
No, and I've never spent any time working there. I've just been traveling through the regions a couple times. So, but I tell you another excitement for me, the Loire Valley wines.
you're late to the game.
Oh gosh, I hate when that
No,
happens.
I'm glad you're there.
I've liked them for the last 4 years. Does that put me closer? When did the game begin?
The game began right about when I started the podcast almost 10 years ago.
Okay, I'm
So
late to
you're
the
in
game.
the second half of it. But that's not why I brought you here.
No,
to
but I think some of the Chenin Blancs coming out of the Loire Valley and the Cabernet Francs, global warming is
I
clearly
agree.
helping people, and I love those wines.
Northern Rhone's top 3 for me.
Yeah.
Like you said, Grayot, Jean Gonan, all the classic guys.
Good friend of mine is Jean-Luc Colombo, who's sort of an eccentric rock star
Terrific
sort of
personality
winemaker.
too. All right, so those are good ones. Do you feel that your preferences have changed through the years, or this is pretty much what it's been for a while?
That's a really good question. I am not aware that my preferences have changed. It's not an obvious yes. I couldn't describe to if they have how they might have changed. What I've said a lot is I used to think that I knew a lot about wines and that I knew a lot of them, and I somehow was an experienced taster. And over the years, I've become humbled by the range and scope and scale of wines. And now I'm very humble about it, and I really do enjoy discovering and exploring and finding new wines.
So the change is more openness.
I guess so. But I don't think
because God knows it's out there. Wait till I have you here 5 years from now, and you can't say you're still drinking Phelps wines, and you discovered the Jura.
It's one of the frustrations. I thought of that. My wife loves books. We go and spend hours in bookstores, which is fine. But every time I'm in a bookstore, I actually get disappointed and depressed because I realize I will never be able to read all the books.
I know.
And there's something about that. So
I know.
It's very much so. I've resigned myself to being of the moment, rather than thinking that I'm systematically trying to taste my way through the world of wines. You know what? The momentary surprise, the discovery, the delight, the miss, that's all.
You just have to keep putting yourself in those positions when you can, or when it's there, take advantage.
Yeah.
All right, good job on that first question. I didn't mention this, but we will post your answers on social media. My whole idea is to bring the right people into this podcast that know what the hell they're talking about, and throw out some good ideas and recommendations. So we have a database of hundreds and hundreds of these answers. All right, second question, kind of the goofiest of the batch, but fun. Your favorite wine and food pairing? Not what you and I could surmise is the best, but what? And it's obviously something you don't eat that much, but
yeah. So two answers. I think what the question's asking for. My favorite meal to prepare, and maybe this is because we're in winter, my favorite meal to prepare, and I think a great dish for pairing a number of wines is cassoulet.
Okay.
Cassoulet, the south of France, bean and
mixed up and not intricate, but a lot of stuff in there.
Oh, but it can have a lot of character.
What's the fat thing they put on top across? Is that
duck fat? So what you do when you finish...
But no, the white, it almost looks like a mesh.
Well, you put breadcrumbs, and then you layer it with duck fat, and you bake it, and then you do it again, and again, and again.
Okay.
And usually, usually a recipe will tell you to do it, I think, 3 times. When I make it, I usually do it 6 times.
Really?
Oh, yeah, because the duck fat...
OCD.
Well, again,
I love that answer. What's the wine then?
Well, then, because it's a heavy dish, so you're now down in Chateauneuf. You're now down in the south. You've got to get some heavier, fuller body reds.
So if we try to get specific and look for a representation that really complements that dish, does a producer come to mind?
Well, and Beaucastel is perhaps the pedestrian, but a reliable
It'll
answer.
Work every time with
we can go to Spain and go to Unico. It would be beautiful. Bordeaux is rife with wines that
so well-made
can
reds
work.
with body.
I think so, right?
Yep.
And then, but the other answer that I immediately sprung to mind is perhaps less interesting, but a food and wine pairing. One of the first ones I had where my wife and I, I'm not sure if we were married or dating, but we both remember the meal, so it was quite a while ago. And it's the simplest of pairings. I just did some pepper steak and went a little heavy on the pepper on the steak. There was
Homemade pepper steak?
Yeah, yeah.
With like a filet mignon,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
sliced
No,
on the
no,
broiler.
no. Just
Okay.
a whole might have been ribeye, filet mignon with pepper steak. And I remember we had a bottle of 1986 Rubicon. And we both realized that it was
a nice big Napa wine.
Perfect pairing. We had a little bit of the wine, it was good. Then we went to the steak, it was better.
When did you have that?
Oh, it would have been 1990, 89 or 90, something like that.
Oh, so the Rubicon was fairly young.
It was young still.
Oh.
It was young.
And it impressed you for you to bring it up.
We both understood. I think that food and wine pairing, there's this holy grail that happens not every time that's hard to manufacture when indeed you taste the wine and it's good. You try the food and you are aware that it's getting better. And you go back and it's this crescendo. It shouldn't happen every time. Usually for me, food and wine pairing is where you just cohabitate. You sort of do no harm.
Here's a roast chicken and here's some burgundy.
Yeah, it works. It's fine. It's good. And you have a great time. But every now and then you have this. And the movie Ratatouille, remember, talks about this when the rat's teaching the other rat how to do the tastings and how they synergize.
Yeah,
that was one of the first moments when I was young where I said, "This is a magic pairing."
Those are good ones.
So that's what you want to look for.
I don't know if anyone's ever said cassoulet is popular and well known as it is as a French dish. Not easy to make.
It can take 3 days. If you start from the raw components, it's 3 days.
You got to do some shopping for that dish.
You've got to get some. Yep.
All right, let's move to the third question. So you travel a bit. You're here. You told me you're going to Japan. I hope that wasn't a secret. So I want you to tell me your favorite wine restaurants and or bars. And what I'm asking you is not to list them. Just give me things in your travel.
Yeah.
We don't want friends to come up and say, how come you didn't mention my place? It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's top of mind. So what I'd love to hear from you is at least your home base, which is, Napa, California area, not necessarily the city of Napa. But give me something there and anything that impresses you in your travels, whether it's heading to the Rhone or France, whatever.
Yeah, no, these are excellent questions, and again, not wanting to be pedestrian or predictable in the answers. The thing about wineries and restaurants, I think, is really essential to becoming legendary is longevity, is actually the test of time. And so I have to recognize in Napa Valley the French Laundry, as Thomas Keller's work there, as having well past the test of time and remains one of the...
What is it, like 30 plus years or close?
I don't know the exact date.
I remember going there for 90s Napa wine hall.
And he's worked through it. And so therefore I have enormous credit. And one of the best meals I ever had, and this is a bit of a sad story. This gets back to our friend Bill Harlan and Christopher Costow, the 3-star restaurant at Meadowood, when Christopher opened that. Pardon me?
It burned down?
It burned down. It's not there anymore. And I remember that the Opus winemaker, Michael Slotchi, and I went shortly after it opened, and we had either a 17 or 18 course meal. And in the middle of it, at about 9 plates, we stood up on purpose, and they walked us through the kitchen, had a lovely tour of the kitchen, sat back down and finished. But it was truly spectacular because there were, of course, small offerings. Each one of them was a visual and sensory delight and surprise, and you would have it. It would be fabulously good, and you want more, but then it was gone.
Same thing at Per Se in New York.
Right.
They open with like pearls and caviar.
This is
All right, so that's a great one.
So that's a good one, right? And
give me a couple more.
The one of thinking of restaurants that no longer exist. One of the greatest meals we had was at Luca Carton, Alain Sonderance, who's passed away, and Luca Carton was a 3-star. There again, we had a magnificent meal of when we go to 3-star restaurants, we put ourselves in the hands of the sommeliers. you pair the wines, you bring out the wines with the courses.
I'm with you.
And everything was seamless and flawless. We walked away from that dinner knowing that that's how it was supposed to be. In Japan, I had one of the most surprising, fabulous meals. It was a restaurant, French name, Créations de Narasawa. Créations de Narasawa. And we had an entire meal where every course was forest themed. And
give me an example of what that means.
Well, it's bring the. It's been a number of years. The sensation remembers the excitement and surprise of it. Plates would come out looking like a forest floor, and
there would be mushrooms or something,
and rocks and sticks and bird, and then it was delicious. There's a caveat that I think sometimes cuisine can become so creative and so much about what a chef can do that it moves away from being hedonically pleasing for the diner.
Right.
It can be just all about the chef. And the beauty of that meal was that it was both delicious and beautiful. The excitement is there are fabulous restaurants all around the world.
Yeah, there's no end. It continues like
I think of Japan because it has more Michelin stars in total than France does.
They have one of the top Neapolitan pizzas in the world.
Right?
You go to Japan. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on. You think sushi and all that.
Exactly.
I hate asking this question, but you're a good guy to ask it too. Not what has been voted or thought. What do you think is the best wine list that you've come across? Oh, think of only places. I mean, does a place like Pearson, California do that or not necessarily?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure if I have I edit this question out. I'm not sure that I have it. Let me think of a great wine list.
All right, so don't answer it. If something pops in your mind,
I'll come back to it.
You'll just come back to that because
Yeah.
I get it. That's why I don't ask the question. All right,
Yeah.
Fourth question. So the question originally was, David, what's your favorite all-time wine? Kind of leaning towards what's the rarest, most expensive wine you ever had?
I've got one.
But listen to me. Listen to part two.
Okay.
I don't care about that. What I care about is, David, tell me the wine that has had the biggest impact on you, that made an impression, changed the way you think about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm good with this. I'm ready.
The second part of it match what you were originally going to say?
Yeah. Send me in, Coach. I'm good.
Okay.
So there are two moments. This is a question that has come up in the past, and it's a good question. The most salient, unforgettable moment that I've had in my wine career did occur at Chateau Mouton Rothschild. And it's a funny story. I'll go through quickly. We were at Chateau Mouton Rothschild. Baroness Philippine de Rothschild was hosting us. The owners of Constellation Company, the Sands family, were there being welcomed. So it was a very important evening and small group, just about 15 of us. And I can tell the whole story. You can use what you want. We're walking through the incredible cellars of Chateau Mouton with candles where they show these priceless bottles of wine dating back to the 1800s, and not just Mouton, but to Margaux. And I was in the back of the group, and Robert Sands looked over me and said very quietly, David, do you think these wines are still good? And I said to him, I've never had this old of a bottle. Honestly, I don't think so. And he then decided to say loudly, Baroness Philippine, David thinks these wines aren't good anymore. Which was a momentary thing. Oh gosh, that's a bad move. And then I thought, well, maybe
it's like throwing you under the bus.
He threw me under the bus, big bus. I was under it.
Okay.
But then I thought maybe this will work out all right.
Block.
So we go to dinner, and we're in the private library of Chateau Mouton Rothschild. Very intimate, very personal. We're having a meal together. There were 3 red wines. The first one was 1991 Opus 1. The first year the winery was constructed. The wine showed beautifully, very honorable. Then came out a 1928 Chateau Mouton Rothschild. And it was remarkable because the Baroness said, do I have 5 or 6 bottles left of that? And I turned, I was sitting next to Philippe Delouin, the winemaker, and I said, does she know the bottles in her? He said, yes.
Crazy.
And I have to share with, she said, well, the 28 and the 29 are like the 61 and 62. And it dawned on me, this is her lifetime. These were wines that she knew directly. And the wine was very respectable, but aged, as I sort of did. It wasn't a surprise, but it was very honorable, a remarkable moment. The last red wine she brought out was the Mouton 1870.
Oh, boy.
And I tell you, as that wine was poured, first of all, rather than being dark brown and oxidized as wines get with age,
Right.
it came out as a lighter red color, like the brown had fallen out somehow.
Wow.
And so I was immediately sort of lost a little bit about what was going on. But as the wine was poured, the room became electric. It's hard to explain, but it was just electric. And it smelled like wild forest strawberries and wet straw. It was sweet on the palate and totally ephemeral like this. And I was completely lost as how an aging wine, what I know about wines as they age, how that happened. And again, I turned to the Mouton winemakers. Where does this come from? How does this happen? And he said, well, he didn't know either. I mean, none of us have many data points for wine.
Right.
So anyway, but you think about the fact that back then they barely knew what yeast was.
They didn't know what a lot was.
Right? And some people made that bottle, put it in the cellar there and recorked every 30 years, more or less. And then we were taken back. It is the epiphany, the dream that we have of making wine that future generations might enjoy wine. So to me, it is the ultimate experience.
One of the things we're going to talk about is when they were making that wine, I'm pretty sure they weren't futzing around with the vineyards. So it's not cyclical, but we'll get to that because we have one more question.
But to be fair, so to finish it, the other moment that comes to mind, that was the most opulent, the most unattainable. I thank Baroness Philippine for it.
That and kind of a lesson and understanding, all the elements.
There's a lot to learn from that moment, a lot to understand. But the other one that comes to mind when this question comes up is the other end of my career. I was just starting. I had graduated from UC Davis in '84. I was living in France, working as an intern, doing anything that anybody would ask me to do for the first year. I learned a lot. I was in the Loire Valley. And what I remember, again, I can't place it exactly, but the sensation, the moment, we were on the Loire Valley. We went into an individual's private cellar right on the banks of the Loire there. And I remember the door opened like this, and there were maybe 10 barrels of his wine. And he took a wine thief and pulled it out. And we tried the wine. We had some saucisson with it. We had a little bit of cheese with it. And it was the most impactful moment I'd had. It was like, oh my gosh. I love the fact that this guy is making this wine.
But that's the whole package thing.
That's the whole thing.
It's not that. And that's a good example of how important wine is. It's not just what's in the glass.
No, it's the moment, it's the person, it's the intent.
I'm sure the wine was good enough, but really good.
Yeah, the wine was fine.
Yeah.
But the moment was unforgettable. And so, it doesn't take I love white tablecloths. I love opulence. I love big fancy meals. But wine has a range from the simplest moment that can be unforgettable to the most ornate.
A lot of the answers we get for that are based on that.
Yeah.
Crappy champagne where the winemaker proposed to his wife.
Right.
And it tasted that much better because of the occasion.
You may want to edit this out, but years ago, I was a Boy Scout. And I use this to this point. I bring this up often. We did a lot of...
David, you're
doing it.
No, it's... decades ago.
Yeah, I know.
You were a Boy Scout.
What did I say? I mean, decades ago. Many decades ago. We were at the top of the Sierras backpacking, and we had something for dinner that was the best thing I'd ever tried before. So
As a Boy Scout?
As a Boy Scout. It was just deliciously good. So I came home, and I told my mother that she had to get this thing. It was so good. It was called Hamburger Helper.
Ah.
And she dutifully went and got it, and she prepared it. And I tried it at home. It's like, ooh,
it was the environment.
It's the moment.
That's a good example.
I love that one.
Because how different is Hamburger Helper there or there?
It is the moment. And so they go together. They have to.
That is food and wine. All right, final question. And this is a tough one. I mean, there's a motive to why I have this question here, and this may be a little out of your comfort zone. I'm not worried about you being comfortable or not because you can handle it. But the question is, I want you to recommend to me the best wine around $15, $20, $22 retail. I want a red, I want a white. You can go category, like I always say this, Muscadet in France by a maker like Pepier for $21 is just a great value for white. So Muscadet is a category, Pepier. What would you say? Because that's not the world you were living in, are living in.
No. And it's really a good point, because the idea that because anyone, and because I've been fortunate to work for illustrious families and work at great wineries, that I was drinking Opus every night is not realistic, or Insignia now every night. I drink Insignia every other night, but no, not every night. And I do think that the challenge and the fun is finding wines of great character and personality at the $15 to $20, $25
That's
rate,
why
right?
you nailed it.
So
now you
I
understand
agree with
the
that.
challenge.
So,
How
so
can you?
I love wines of the South. A white wine called Pic Boule de Pinet is Picpoulet. Pic Boule de Pinet. It's a little bit like the Choix Rebe we talked about earlier.
Great answer.
And it's an eminently affordable, lovely white wine to drink. And so that's
all right. So we'll
that's
do that as the white.
And
And
the
again,
red wines. We're going to go into Spain. I think Spain produces, and I don't have a
older regions, newer regions.
Well, that's it.
Not newer like Bierzo and some of these places. Canary Islands have been around forever, but
Rioja, right?
Well, there's value in Rioja.
There's some value there. I think there's some really, really good value wines.
So look
there.
for good Spanish Rioja. I agree with that. All right. So those are good answers. And like I said, we're going to post it. That's what the wine list is all about. All right. So I want to see what's going on in your world. I'm curious about one thing. You studied fermentation science at UC Davis.
I did.
But ultimately, and I'm curious like what and when the moment was where you left sort of that side and focused on the business side.
So I, as a winemaker, was a winemaker with a very thin skin.
Okay.
And I think that I admit that when I was making wines, the rating process was difficult for me. It's hard because you care for the wine you make and you put your heart and your soul into it. And
so you didn't have the stomach?
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't.
I don't mean it like in a negative way, but viscerally, you're like, I don't need this.
It's a hard thing. That part struck me as not the most pleasant process, and I know it's hard for winemakers to not get scores they think are aligned with their winemaking. I had a tour once with George Clooney, which was fun in itself, and at the end, the thing we really connected over was the process of wines getting rated and movies getting rated. When you have your heart and soul in your movie that you think is great. He and I both connected on that point. But that wasn't really what did it. I have to be honest, what I really didn't like was the sales and marketing. I didn't like the commercial aspect to it. And back then, this was a few decades ago, the distributors weren't as informed as they are today.
No.
And it was just, I did it for a number of years. I loved making wine. And I knew that I wanted to do more. I think that winemakers who do it for their whole life are a genetic breed. It has to be in your DNA, a little bit the way chefs are committed to cooking, true great chefs. It's what they have to do. And that wasn't my eventual calling. And I went offline. I went to R&D, research and development. I spent 6 years working in a laboratory, studying and performing technical sensory analysis, sensory evaluation for a company called Hubline, which is today Diageo.
Right.
And I did sensory analysis on Smirnoff vodka and Jose Cuervo tequila.
My favorite
and flavor.
vodka, Smirnoff.
What's that?
It's my favorite vodka.
It was the first. That's a great
it was
story.
Nice and clean.
They brought it to the U.S.
I loved it.
Yeah, John G. Martin brought it to the U.S. But so I was literally it's kind of a country club. When you're in an R&D, you're not part of P&L, and you get to do research, and you get to do quality assurance and quality control. And I did that. I studied, was tutored, or I was one of the great professors of sensory evaluation was a woman named Rosemarie Pangborn. She was at Davis, and she greatly inspired me. So I sort of followed that passion for 6 years, doing the sensory evaluation. At the end of 6 years, I said to myself that I wanted to come back to the wine world, and but I knew that I wasn't going to return to the winemaking career chart or trend. And so I just spent a little while doing some thinking and decided I wanted to manage wineries. And I knew that to do that, I had to have an understanding of sales and marketing. So that I said, okay, I'll get an MBA and I'll do some marketing, and that will lead me towards being general management, which is what I did. So I got an MBA, and
one of the few guys who got an MBA and applied it exactly to what you wanted.
Because I knew exactly why I was doing it. It really is sort of a ticket of entry. You need an MBA to get in. And I was very fortunate. My first marketing job was the U.S. marketing manager for the wines of Baron Philippe de Rothschild. So I was marketing Chateau Mouton Rothschild and Mouton Cadet back in the 90s.
So, I don't want to get into history too much because I want to move forward on some really relevant issues. But two prominent things in your life, Opus and now Phelps, legendary vineyards. You mentioned Rothschild. How did the Mondavi-Rothschild meeting come about? Were they just friends?
For Opus?
For Opus. Go back to Opus.
So back to Opus. So Rothschild was entertaining the idea of doing something in Napa Valley.
Was he shopping, or he had his mind made up?
No. There was a little bit of shopping, but it's sort of like going into the store and knowing what you're looking for. So a gentleman named Philippe Cotin, who's passed away now. Philippe Cotin was Baron Philippe de Rothschild's right-hand man, and he was doing the shopping and helped Robert Mondavi meet Baron Philippe. And they had a famous meeting in the Baron's bedroom. Came up with
They hit it off.
They hit it off. They were aligned and great friends. The families were great friends throughout. And
I'm trying to think. At that time, were there any other collaborations?
No, this is the first.
That's
of its
really
kind.
of
It was really
innovative and
really
legendary
the first of its kind. Now that said,
right.
We're going to go back to Phelps here for a second.
Well, I want you to talk about Phelps in a minute.
Yeah.
But wait, go back. So luxury pricing, there was the beginning of thoughtful farming practices at Opus. All right, so that leads me in. So you spent, 16 years there. Let's talk about Phelps, which you are now. Just don't go crazy here, but just give me a little history. And it deserves history.
It does.
It's sort of a legacy, legendary.
It's a founding pillar,
and probably one of the reasons you're there.
Yeah. No, for all of
just tell everyone.
Joe Phelps was a remarkable individual on many fronts. He inherited his father's construction company. They were in Colorado at the time. His name was. The company still exists. It's called Hansel Phelps, and Joe took it from
a non-tech guy.
Right.
There was no tech.
I know. All tech guys do get pulled into the wine business, which is a curiosity. But this was a construction, a great construction president of a great construction company that he expanded nationwide, from coast to coast, doing all sorts of different buildings. And he opened an office in San Francisco, Burlingame, in 1966. Actually happens to be the first vintage of Robert Mondavi Winery, but he opened his office in 66, and he was commissioned to build a winery in Napa Valley, Chateau Souverain.
So that was
that's his entry, and he was already he had been making wine in his basement in Colorado.
So he had a pre-interest in it.
He had an interest in it. He was building Souverain, which now is Rutherford Hill. John Marsh Davis is the architect, and he then made the happy mistake, or he then traveled to Italy for the first time, and traveled all up and down Italy. And apparently the story is that he was in the Duomo in Florence, and he had his own moment of epiphany where he knew that he had to go back and build something for himself, that he wanted his own statement in Napa. And equally importantly, he understood the culture of wine. And I think this is important relative to what we're seeing maybe today, which is he didn't go back because he thought he could make a lot of money in the wine business. He went back because he wanted to make a statement for himself, and he loved the culture of sharing, eating, dining, which is the
foundation.
It's the right
for
motivation.
Building.
It's the right motivation, was to come in, and he through his life loved to share, loved to teach, and loved to work with people. So he came back and started looking for his own property in Napa, and Joe Heitz, amongst other people, helped him find in St. Helena 640-acre property that was a cattle ranch. It was called Connolly Ranch, full of cattle. Bought the property, built his winery in 1973, and first wines came out in 73 and 74, and he was off and running. One of my favorite anecdotes when he got started was he told his family and the staff, he said he felt like they'd almost missed the boat, that they were on the trailing curve of wineries in Napa because there were 60 there at the time. He didn't imagine that there would be much more. So he thought he was sort of late to the game.
Right.
Of course, he was at the beginning of what we can call the renaissance of Napa. Today, there's 700 something wineries in Napa. So he was right at the beginning. His great innovation was, and I say this because today it seems like maybe not such a great step, or it's sort of obvious, but then he said he wanted to have a proprietary name for his wine so that every year people would know the best grapes and the best wines went into this bottle of wine. And he was literally the first person in Napa to have had this idea. So he thought about it. Evidently, the idea came to him while he was shaving. Not that does anything other than give you some color to it. But he thought
insignia was on some packaging or something?
No, it came from his time in the Navy. He'd been in the Navy, was in the Korean War, and he's a mark of distinction, mark of credit and class.
That's even cooler.
Right? So, and it's funny because I was saying this not long ago. What I like about that, the reason that the shaving matters is because it came from within him. It was not a marketing consultant. Not that I have anything wrong with marketing.
Sit around a table and go, we see this.
It spoke to his soul, and so insignia became the name. 1974 was the first insignia, and
kind of a Bordeaux blend.
It was a Bordeaux blend then. It is now.
Still all 5 Bordeaux grapes.
Depends on the year.
Right. Not every, but Malbec is in there somewhere sometimes.
Right. A little bit less Merlot, a little bit of Cabernet Franc. Usually 80 to 90% Cabernet Sauvignon. Petit Verdot plays a nice role.
So the formula's not exact, but it falls to 80, 90% Cab, and then the other 3 or 4 predominants are tweaked.
Exactly.
So you're saying you pull back on Merlot a little?
No, it's just that we have relatively smaller amounts of it, and the blend, we've had some years where the Merlot is higher. But it really varies depending on the year. Right now we're seeing mostly Cabernet Sauvignon, maybe 5, 6, 7% Petit Verdot, touch of Malbec, touch of Cabernet Franc.
So here's something I can't figure out in my head. So Heights turns them onto this property, 500 acres. What year was that? Late 60s?
Well, he purchased the property in 72.
So were there vines on the property?
No. So he started buying grapes from other vineyards.
Oh, okay. So
he made some beautiful
first
wines.
one.
Right.
Did he plant right away?
He planted right away.
So
he planted
5, 7 years later, what do you have, like 10, 15 acres planted?
I don't have the exact number, but that's
think about the property.
No, but he made some of the best wines from Islay vineyards. He was buying grapes from Islay.
Good guess, good start. Lucky.
That's right. Well, I don't know if it's lucky. I think it was he had a.
So to wrap this up a little, he had this insignia idea, but he kind of flanges out to I can make other wines.
From the first he did. And so this was, this idea of visionary and pushing and innovative. He was the first person in California to make a Syrah designated wine. He was making Johannesburg Riesling. In fact, the first wine that got critical note was his Johannesburg Riesling. Robert...
So nobody was doing stuff like that. Really.
Well, back then in the 70s, Napa had a lot of grapes. People were trying a lot. That's sort of
a lot of variety and diversity,
there was
which everything eventually got pulled out. Right.
Yeah.
So he recognized that. Now Phelps is in multiple AVAs. So
that's the other great achievement that Joe and his team did through the decades was go beyond the 640-acre property that he purchased. There's only about 100 acres planted on that property. Through the decades, he continued to acquire vineyards. Today, we farm 8 separate vineyards in Napa Valley, which run the length of Napa. And
so all kinds of diversity.
Oh, the diversity of soil and qualities. We've got a Rutherford vineyard. We've got an Oakville. We've got 2 in Stag's Leap, 2 in Yountville, 1 down in Soskel. And that range of vineyards is exceptional in Napa Valley. I don't know anyone that has. And it's not just in the Appalachians. It is right on the benchlands and at the foothills. Beautiful properties.
Nice. I meant to ask you this before. With your background and the turn you took, in the business, Do you get involved when you were at Opus and now in the winemaking? Is it more, let me see what's going on, and less, here's my input? Or what?
So yes and no. I mean, having been a winemaker, not of the stature of the winemakers with whom I'm working now, or of necessarily the experience, but I know that winemaking is not a committee process. Particularly when you're aspiring to make wines of great expression and great character. It is an artistic expression, and it does need to be of a producer, a man or a woman who's responsible for it. That said, the best winemakers that I've known listen really well. They listen to people's opinion, they absorb it, they think about it, and then they make their decisions.
So more listening than meddling.
Exactly.
Like not playing around with the vials and things, but
Well, I play with the vials, but that's,
I know. You're not blending it.
No.
You're giving the space.
We have the blending process, the fastation after the fermentation. The wines are in barrels, the separate lots. Most wineries producing high-end wines do this, and then sit down and make the assemblage, the blend that will be the wine. And that process can take 3-4 weeks. You can try 30 to 40 different blends before you find the one you think has the best expression, the best balance, the best alignment with the amount of wine that you want to produce, all the different things to find the blend that is just right. And that process is where you really get to understand the vintage, because it's not a straight line. You try a blend, say, wait a second, let's take a little bit more of this out, put this in, and there's a great deal of discussion. We bring in, as do other wineries, we bring in outside, we have an outside consultant who gives his opinion, and all of those opinions come together. But then the winemaker has to make the decision, and I have to, and I do respect all of the space for that decision, because if I start meddling in that, then he or she's not the winemaker. In the end of the day, I carry the responsibility for the results of everything that the winery does, and so I carry that. And in a sense, I have a veto card, but I have to be incredibly cautious about using that.
It sounds like a good process.
There's
involvement, commitment, but space given.
All the space. I have thought that my management is informed by the fact that I'd worked on the production side.
Right.
And without working on it, I
come
think
in with some cred.
A little bit of experience on that, yeah.
And, knowing you a little, your personality, I mean, I would think that would work well. One of the reasons I really wanted to sit down with you, I get a lot of requests to have people on. And to me, it's about the story, the person, the wine, maybe that's third or whatever. But something that I'm very interested in and focused on, and that's important to me, last 4 or 5 years, is wine and farming.
Yeah.
And how it's done. And, doing a little research for this, I think we can get to where we want to go by asking you to tell me about a trip you took to the Ardèche that had an impact on the way you're thinking now. So that there's a fair entree into where you and I want to talk.
Yeah. I'll add this to it. I think that the arc of Napa Valley, the really interesting arc, this is more than what you asked for, but when I was at UC Davis, I was taught to make wine technically in the winery. I took one class on vineyards, plant science. That's it. Now, I may have missed out, and there were others maybe taking many more vineyard classes than I was at the time. But my sense is that Napa initially learned how to not make mistakes, learned how to technically make good wine. But this finding the soul, creating wines that have a life, this character.
That's the word, soul.
That's a different thing. And I think that the great success of Napa is the arc that we've come towards realizing that you have to focus in the vineyard. You don't find that in a winery, so it's in the vineyard, and that's very exciting. When White Hennessy acquired Joseph Phelps, they shared with me, we've shared with everybody, that the aspiration is to make the very finest wine that we can from the vineyards we farm, and be at the level of the finest wines coming out of Napa. Elevate the quality, which is already excellent quality, elevate it farther. And if we say that and we don't look in the vineyards, then we're not being, I think, serious or consistent. So yes, I came to Joseph Phelps with the excitement of looking in the vineyard. I found my excitement when I was traveling in the Ardèche between my time at Opus and before I arrived at Joseph Phelps. I was in the Ardèche. I was looking for something creative and innovative and maybe meaningful. And I met a grape grower for a cooperative in the Ardèche. Valvinière is the region, which is a beautiful region. And this gentleman was doing what is called permaculture, which is taking our winter cover crops and rather than turning them into the soil in the spring like we've all done and leaving the soil bare through the summer until the next seeding, he was taking his grasses and his legumes and he was rolling them flat and leaving the earth covered. And then the next spring, he would seed on top of that, grow it, roll it flat, seed, and he continued such. And I was there either 5 or 6 years he'd been doing it. He explained to me that the timing of the rolling was critical, not too early, not too late. But once you got that down, we walked into the vineyard, and I have my iPhone videotaping.
This is the rows between the vines?
The rows between the vines.
Okay.
So between the vines, we're standing
Right.
between the vines. He take a pitchfork, and he lifts it up, and what I saw...
Like this thriving, beautiful, smelly soil?
Well, it was this lasagna of decomposing organic materials.
Right.
The grasses were there. They were slowly decomposing from top down. And at the bottom, where they were fully decomposed, was black soil, new soil that had been created. Because fungi, mushrooms, take decomposing organic material and turn it into soil. It's like, oh, there's soil there. And then I looked down in the little hole that he'd created with his pitchfork, and in the soil was moist and clumping and full of worms. And it smelled good. And I thought, this is really different because when we turn the soil over and leave it bare for the summer, it dries and turns into dry, crumbly dirt. And from that moment, I thought, well, this is a different approach
Does
to
that
managing.
touch regenerative?
It
Because
is,
it
in
sounds
fact,
like it's
so
regenerating,
it
right?
is indeed regenerating the health of the soil. And what the U.S. calls regenerative farming is exactly that. So this is a new kind of approach to farming. In France, they will call it agroecology or agroforestry, of which you have concepts of polyculture.
Well, permaculture and poly is really the whole...
That's part of the pillars.
Not just the row in between, but a forest.
That's
and
right.
Bees
that's right.
and...
It's so that's exactly right. And I found already, because I've been talking about this since that moment, literally, I started meeting people, reading books. I became determined that wherever I would land, I wanted to be part of this new way of farming, which is, by the way, not just in a textbook. There's a lot of things we still have to learn, but as I went through this, I got to the point where I realized that it's not just simply I used to do these 10 things, now I'm doing these 10 things. It's a different philosophy, a different relationship with nature, which sounds sort of big, but the reason for me it's compelling is...
Well, I think you hit it on the nose. It's a relationship, not a list of things to do.
It is a philosophy and approach.
Right.
Because the way that I see this now is agriculture, not just grapevines, but agriculture as we know it, starts with the philosophy that we can manipulate and control nature to make it do what we want it to do. And we're finding more and more that that's just not true. So the way we farm is we take all the trees out, all the bushes out. Let's just use corn. We create a bare plot of land and we plant corn. We've created a monoculture. Because we've removed the ecosystem, nature feeds itself. Because we've removed the ecosystem, we have to fertilize the plants. And thanks to World War II, we have synthetic fertilizer. So we were able to feed our plants, which is sort of a kind of steroid for plants. Now that's created the Green Revolution, which has been wildly successful around the world, but we're not reproducing what nature does, and there are implications there that matter. So we've got synthetic fertilizer. Then, because nature hates monoculture, it sends in a weed. We don't want the weeds in the plants because we think they'll compete with what we're growing, corn or otherwise. So we have to take the weeds out. We use Roundup. We don't. We don't.
Glyphosate or whatever.
Right. We use glyphosate, right? So we use Roundup to take the weeds out, and then it sends a little insect, because why not? The insect can be carrying a virus. So we have to keep the insects out. So basically the way we farm now, globally, is pushing nature out and then making it do what it doesn't want to do naturally. And the observation is, without being too dark about it, is we're losing that fight against nature. There are more and more weeds that are Roundup resistant. There are more viruses and insects coming all the time. A researcher said on a podcast I heard recently that the way we're farming globally, we've lost half of our topsoil.
Wow.
When you see a tractor turning over dry soil and you see the plume behind you, we are destroying the topsoil. We've lost half. So the beauty of agroecology is it asks us to step out, bring back the full biodiversity of nature. first in the soil and then on the surface. So in the soil, we need the soil to be full of bacteria and microbes, full of fungus and mycelium, which is the fibrous network that comes under mushrooms. And once you have that living soil on the surface, rather than planting monoculture, we have to create diversity by planting polyculture. And then once the ecosystem turns on its own, then you insert yourself in with the farming without disturbing that cycle.
So if you go to Loire or wherever, that's sort of been happening at some vineyards for decades and decades. When you look at Phelps and, a vast holding that they have, you're in the process of doing this. Is it a big turnover time, or they were thoughtfully farming, or?
So they have been thoughtfully or organically farming for sure, and
better than a lot of other Napa guys in that sense.
Well, I don't want to. Okay. I feel very good about the way we're farming, and we're still farming a lot of our acres in the traditional organic high quality manner. So it's not an overnight change everything.
So when you say organic high quality, that's not necessarily the permaculture practice. You'll get to that vineyard and you will start, the rows in between. You'll start creating your layers.
That's right. We haven't.
Is it the goal to kind of be uniform and get to that practice everywhere?
Yes. And
a permaculture and
the other one that's a little harder is polyculture.
That's what I was looking for.
The permaculture is keeping the soil covered.
But everything around it.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the polyculture is I think critical and more interesting in a lot of ways. That, as we envision it, the best example that I know of is actually in Saint-Emile, Cheval Blanc. Cheval Blanc has been farmed this way.
That's a Moet property.
It is owned
so they're walking the walk there, right?
Indeed. And it's between 10 and 15 years that they've been doing this, and they have planted fruiting and wood trees in the middle of their vine rows, interplanted them with the vine rows.
So a good example of ground up,
That's
how
right.
they keep going and going.
In the interaction of the roots is what creates the healthy soil, which creates the healthier vines. And this is the vision that we have for Joseph Phelps that we've now begun. So we have taken in our home ranch, where we have 125 acres, we've pulled a handful of parcels out and are now preparing to replant them in this manner. Now, as we do it, we're going to do it in a way that we study and learn the results. And so we learn from the process rather than just doing it all at once everywhere. But it's very exciting because the parcel that's right in front of the original winery, what we call the home ranch, in a couple months, we'll be planting first a membrane, a perimeter around the parcel of trees and bushes to create a bio barrier. The next year, we'll come in and put our rootstocks in. But when we put the rootstocks in, we'll be putting fruiting trees between every fourth and fifth vine. And so that we will grow the roots and the fruit trees together. We'll then come in and graft on top of those rootstocks the year after. And then we'll let those go for 3 leaves before we get fruit off it. So it is not tomorrow that this will occur.
I mean, straight up growing vines is not tomorrow if you didn't do it, any different way. So
someone asked me about that. I said, well, we're in the fine wine business. The fine wine business by its nature is long-term. If it isn't, then you're not really in the fine wine business.
It's nice to see a winery always make that commitment. To me, it's even more nice and impressive when it's in California and Napa. And I hope, it kind of, by example, influences people.
I hope so too, because I am confident, I'm hopeful that, and we see this coming, not just in the wine world, the vineyard world, but in agriculture in general. We have to look at how we farm. And there is
because a lot more acres are not vines. Right. It's the corn and soybeans and every, that's killing us.
Exactly. There's a great video. I should be getting commissions because I say this so often. There's a great video on Netflix called Kiss the Ground. And if you want to watch one video, watch Kiss the Ground. It explains Woody Harrelson does the narrating.
Oh, great.
And so it's nicely done. And
I haven't seen it. I got to watch
it. It really does explain why this is important. And if only a couple wineries do this, then it won't become widespread. So it needs to be something that people will adopt. But it also there is a hurdle to understanding why you're going to be putting fruiting trees or trees at all in the middle of your vineyard. The expectation has been that the trees will compete for the nutrients.
Right.
And
that's old
well, but
thinking.
not well.
I mean, there's some real to it, but
it depends on which trees.
right.
It's which trees. So it turns out that the vine and ivy co-evolved with certain trees, and the ones that they co-evolved with, not only can they live together, they thrive together. One of the best ones is actually the maple tree.
Really?
Vines love maple trees. I was in Montepulciano with actually our Bordeaux consultant. This is before I was working with Phelps. We were in Montepulciano. We found this vineyard with rows of 100-year-old maple trees where the vines were using the trees as the trellis support. And one of the statements that this consultant make, Alain Canet, who's also a great personal friend, Alain will say without hesitation that vines grown in healthy, dynamic, diverse soils will live 100 productive years. 100
Wow.
productive years, not just, today our old vines sort of get lower and lower in yield. And there's examples where he can show vines that have lived that age because they've been in ecosystems that have been healthy.
That's very cool. You and I literally could do 3 shows on this, but I hope we kind of chipped away at it a little. I want to ask you 2 things that I want you to answer quickly because we got to wrap up. The first is Napa's sort of been known for their big, unctuous, over-the-top, fruity cabs. Is there a movement away from that? I mean, is there more restraint or a little different?
Well, I think there has been. I think of wines like Kathy Coruscant's wine is a
good
wine
example.
of beautiful restraint and balance, and I think of Spotswood that I love.
But what about Insignia? Is there a style that you kind of have to stick with, or by using varietals and maybe taste changing, do you tweak it? Or
the trend. I hesitated a moment because I had conversations with some of the Phelps family members as I came on board. We didn't have the exact same perspective on some of the earlier vintages of Insignia. In the early 2000s, Insignia was getting rave reviews. We still get very nice reviews, but the 2002 was Wine Spectator's Wine of the Year, and
it was a
Robert
great
Parker was
year.
giving 100-point scores. And I'll admit on whatever this tape or live that
It's a big wine.
Well, I thought at the time I was at Opus at the time, and I thought they were bigger than what we were trying to do at Opus with restraint and level and balance. And we were trying to get full maturity at lower alcohol levels, which is really the trick, because you need to get phenolic and qualitative maturity. And if the vine can do it faster before the sugar climbed too high, that's the trick in the vineyard. So I thought that's what we were aspiring to at Opus. When I tried the Insignia these days, when I taste the 16 and 18, 19, 21, we didn't make any in 20 because of the fires.
Right.
I love the direction of the style, which is, in my opinion, more restrained, letting the grapes speak, a little bit less oak.
Plus in time, the effect the farming will have actually, maybe more vibrant, lively, characteristically could change a little.
Well, 100%. I think that there's many years ago, I can't remember where I heard this, but I agree with the idea that New World wines, often when they're just getting started, do caricatures of the great wines because they're so new at it. If a little oak is good, a lot has to be better. And they're trying to get as much characters.
That's a good point.
It takes a number of years of, frankly, experience and sophistication to know, again, how to pull off on the accelerator, make a wine of less power, but more character, more complexity. And I feel really good that that's the direction Napa is moving toward. I think there's 2 schools. There are people who love big wines.
Yeah, and some people will continue to do that. And other people won't turn a switch on overnight. They'll evolve to a style that may be affected by farming or varietals or
100%. But I think the idea of wines overpowering, you can only drink half a glass and you're done, kind of thing.
14.6 alcohol.
That's a lot.
Come on.
Well,
all right, last question. So you can't not read everywhere about wine that consumption is down, and generationally, we're Gen Z and all those guys, they're the consumers now. They don't drink as much wine. Maybe they drink cocktails and all that. I'm just curious about consumption in the luxury market.
Yeah.
I mean, are those guys a little more bulletproof, guys my age and your age or whatever, or you're subject to some problems?
So a couple of thoughts. One, I mean, I don't have market research numbers in my head to back up what I'm about to say. But the truth of the matter is when I first started hearing, and maybe a year or two ago, about young people not drinking wine, not coming to wine, my first reaction was, I've heard that every decade. I remember in the 80s, young people weren't coming, and they did. 90s, they're not coming. And so my first reaction, this is just crying wolf because I've been through it. They're going to come. It's a matter of age and wealth and income. And again, I've been associated with expensive wines, which is a different purchase dynamic, a different consumer than the entry levels. But still, I was a little bit in denial about it because wine has such an indelible place at the table with meals. That said, I do have a sense that we need to pay attention to what young people are doing and what their values are and how they may be shifting. And one of the things that to me seems the most evident is, I mean, we have sold for the last 30 years to boomers. I'm told I'm the last year of the boomers. 62 apparently is the last year of the boomers.
I'm out of it.
So we're terming out. We're not going to have them to market to the way we have in the past. So that is a shift. And the younger folks, I've got 3 kids who are in their 30s. They are less impressed with the idea that a wine might age for 20 years. They are much more of the moment. They are, I think the numbers back this up, they're investing less in permanent things. They are about the experience and the moment and the value of what they're doing.
I also think the story.
The story.
Like if it's a cool winemaker,
right.
I think some people have an eye towards natural winemaking, but like organic or like if I'm schlepping to Whole Foods and buying organic produce, why am I drinking a wine that isn't that? They're more conscious of it.
It's the question of authenticity. And to me,
Good word
authenticity.
To cover it.
Well, it's a word. To me, it's a word like luxury. That everyone thinks they know what it is until you try and pin it down in precision. Then it gets a little slipperier in terms of what people.
Are prestige and luxury 2 different wines, or it's the same?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know.
Right.
I haven't spent time thinking about prestige.
Yeah,
but
let's move on.
But authenticity matters because I did think a lot about that. How do you make something that's authentic, and what is it that it confers authenticity? To me, the answer, at least partially, because it's not perfect, is an alignment with intent with what you do. And the question is, what is the intent versus what you're producing or performing? When those are aligned, it will feel authentic.
Right. And you have to be able to explain away and show the intent.
And so I think authenticity matters, that the consumer feels it and sees it. The other one is what we've talked about earlier, a question of the moment, where you are, that the experience, it's not passive, it's getting people physically engaged so that they do something where their hands connect. They don't want to be told and learn, they want to go do it.
I agree.
So we have to offer those kind of opportunities to young people, authentic wines of the moment. The holy grail of winemaking, many have now realized it, is making wine which is delicious and accessible and easy to drink right as it hits the market and can age for 20 years.
Right.
And that's the trick. You can't go to the market anymore and say, my wine will be good 10 years from now.
No. David, we got to wrap up. Good way to end it. Let me do a quick wrap up. I want to get some info from you. So thanks for listening. If you'd like to contact the Wine List, we are at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. The Wine List is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you get your pods. Please subscribe to the podcast if you like it. Leave a review. That'd be terrific. Follow us on Instagram at @SBenRuby, on Twitter X, we're @BenRuby, and on Facebook, we're at the Grape Nation page. As I mentioned, I'll post David's wine picks, and there was a lot of stuff going on there on our social media sites. David, let's first start with this. If we want to look into follow Phelps, you on social media, are they active?
Very.
Instagram? So tell me some handles.
So joseppphelps.com.
Okay, right there.
It is, and I don't know what the handle is on Instagram.
You know what? If you search Phelps, it comes up. It's probably, I'll post it. Don't worry about it. And then if people want more info, like how do I order this wine or whatever, website?
Yeah, on website. Absolutely.
Joseph Phelps.
JosephPhelps.com.
Okay. Where we could learn more about that. All right. So, David, thank you. Thank you for sitting down to me. You could blur it out when you get the Instagram handle. Thanks for sitting down with me. Thank you for talking about, all the farming and the winery. I want to thank our engineer, Armin. Shout out to Willie Soul for our new original theme music and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. Did you find it?
Sam, you can just go to Joseph Phelps Vineyards.
Joseph Phelps Vineyards.
You'll get it.
And you'll see what that circle logo is. What, green? Green. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an olive green.
Olive green. All right. I'm Sam Ben Ruby, and you got this week's wine list. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.